Why stop Victoria? So I feel, though, looking back on my career, that being sort of voluntarily excluded from the traditional comic sphere has meant that I've felt capable of completely I've been very free in my approach to the genre, and a lot of what I do breaks boundaries. And so I've created these books. I mean, I do straight comics as well. I do strips, I do political editorial cartoons, I do illustrations. But in the books that I've created, they've tended to take a couple of different aspects and then put comics in something in quite an unusual way. So this kind of image is one that dominates comics, and not here in Gosh, but in general. And it's such an exaggerated image of masculinity that it's actually impossible to parody. And when women appear in comics, they tend to be like this. I mean, Catwoman here, she's pretending to be an active agent of her own fate, but she's actually only really there to look sexually available with pneumatic erogenous stones. So I decided, as a comics artist, to reapproach the superhero trope, and this is my take on it. My forehead. And now we have Bump. And the reason why I'm talking about womanhood is that Bump is a book that interrogates what it is to be a woman. And I want to talk about what it actually means to be a woman. Now, I make no apology for being biologically determinist at this point, because I think that it's a subject that hasn't really been explored properly in our culture. There's a lot about what it means to have a womb. And I know that's not identical with being a woman, and I do address trans and gender men in the introduction, but there is a lot about having a womb that is an experience which is really secret, which isn't really talked about, which isn't really explored. It gives something that empowers people to really be in the moment of labour. And these are the images of strength that I came up with. And this is Catwoman, as you haven't seen her before. Now, I'm not just a comics artist, I'm an activist. Well, I like to think actually, I don't get much time other than drawing comics, because comics is a very labour-intensive thing. But what I mean by that is that I like my cartoons to actually do something. And there's a lot to be active around in birth. But if that makes it sound really serious, then it shouldn't, because I think the place where the interface of comics and activism works best is summed up by my friend Rosie, who said the phrase that if you make someone laugh, then you're halfway to changing their mind. So if you find a comedy in a situation, then you find connection with people. And there's so much comedy in pregnancy, particularly, and birth. So I really relished the opportunity to draw cartoons like this one, like, oh, I love pregnant bellies. Excuse me, it's my belly. Like, that's a moment that a lot of pregnant women will identify with. This one, I had this one planned for years. This is just an equitable distribution of pillows between the expectant couple, which is about the bit at the end of pregnancy where there's no bloody way you can get comfortable at all. I think that's fair. And what I did to create Bump, particularly the bits that focus around birth, was to read the available scientific literature that there is around birth. And it is a really brilliant moment to be able to write a book about birth, which is making birth accessible for women. Because they're not going to go into the Cochrane collaboration and download their meta-analysis of scientific reports. But these meta-analyses have just been done. And within the last sort of 5 or 6 years, there's been a lot of very interesting interrogation into the science of whether commonly used interventions in birth are appropriate or helpful or effective. And really surprisingly in some instances, they really aren't. So I'm really pleased to be able to take the 2006 Cochrane collaboration meta-analysis of continuous fetal monitoring or whatever, and transmit what that means to women who are going to be in labour. Like, this is a cartoon about syntocinon, which is used to speed up labour, and it's used commonly to speed up labour by people who are told that their baby is compromised and that they will not be able to have a baby without the aid of this drug. Now, the overall analysis of what it does is it makes labour a bit quicker, it makes the labour a lot more painful, but it doesn't provide any overall benefits for the baby or the mother, and that's quite a stunning conclusion. So why is it being so commonly recommended? we have continuous fetal monitoring, and we have cutting the cord immediately after birth, which is a practice that is almost certainly harmful to babies in almost every instance, yet it's really, really common. I think one of the hardest things for me as an activist to learn when I started writing about parenting is that there isn't one right solution. There isn't one right way to have a baby, there isn't one right way to raise a baby. And I like things to be right and wrong, I like to go, yeah, no. But actually, empowering women is about providing them with choice. And it's about giving them information and then trusting them with their intuition and with that information to make the decision that's right for them. And so I wanted to say that the book really explores empowered caesarean birth, because there are some babies that do need to be born by caesarean. And I really don't like an atmosphere that I have heard in some active birth circles where they start going, yeah, well, I succeeded in having a home birth. Well, I failed because I had medical intervention. Like, medical interventions in birth, although some of them may be unnecessary when applied to a woman who is labouring easily, there are always times when they are necessary, and when they are, we're bloody lucky to have them available. So I talk about different ways to birth within the context of that book.
I'd just like to say how excited all the birth community is about Kate's book. We've been really looking forward to it. We love the food of love. We share it with our clients, and this is another one which is going to be a classic, and mentions that magic word oxytocin in the right context. And I wish more midwives and obstetricians would read it. And I wish her lots of success. From Dooley, UK.
So I'm Julie, I work for Neighbourhood Midwives, I'm a midwife. I'm really excited about the book because I just think it brings this incredibly important subject to life in this joyous, fun, imaginative and really engaging way. So I'm hoping that some people who may not think they're interested in reading about birth, maybe especially men actually, might really kind of be grabbed by the, I won't say what, and be really into this subject.